I've got the answer. If you're on the yes side coming up tomorrow, Jackson County, 3/8 sales tax extension for the Chiefs and the Royals. If you want the yes to pass with flying colors, I'll tell you right now what these teams can do to get a late push for the yes vote to pass. What they could do today in a press conference is roll out news that they are rolling back concession prices. No, I'm not making it up. I mean, I'm thinking about this because I saw over the weekend the Masters are next week, one of my favorite weeks of the year. And if you've ever been to the Masters or you're a golf fan, and I know I'm alone when I say that on this show, although Mark might be interested in golf just because he could play some bets on it nowadays. You interested in that?
Yeah, I don't mind golf.
Okay.
I'll watch it on a Sunday.
All right. Mark will dabble. There's nothing else on for him. But if you're a golf fan, you know that the Masters concession prices are like $1.50 for sandwiches, $2 for beer. And I saw people getting excited for the Masters over the weekend and sharing some of those prices for the Masters concessions. And it's, one of the things that makes it great. The tradition is outstanding. And then I was thinking back to opening day last Thursday when we had on different folks from the Royals, and they were talking about their new value menu that they've got out at Kauffman Stadium, including $5 beers and $4 hot dogs. And that's at every game. Now, the $5 beer is a 12-ounce Miller Lite. So do with that information what you will. But it is less than the $13 beer that's 24 ounces. On a per-ounce basis, you are better off buying $5 Miller Lites than you are $13 24-ounce beers. Like, just do the math, right? $4 hot dogs. That's a pretty good deal. I don't need a foot long for $9. I can have a regular hot dog for $4. The teams make a fortune off their concessions. They're allowed to. We go to games. We buy booze. We have a drink. Maybe too many. Hopefully someone else is driving. We eat like pigs. That's what America does at sporting events. But there are certain places where they don't try to hose you. The Masters is one of them. The Atlanta Falcons also are notorious for having great deals on their concessions, too. Arthur Blank is the owner, one of the Home Depot guys, and he has very cheap concessions. If this vote is so important to these teams, I'm not saying they got to make it $2 beers, because that would be very unsafe, actually, to have Chiefs fans buying $2 beers. There's a reason that beer prices are on the higher side for football games, and actually generally think it's probably for a good reason, because you don't want people acting like total idiots. But you could take soda prices. You could take the price of hot dogs. You could take the price of nachos. You could do the basics, and you could say, you know what? We want to continue to give a commitment to these communities, and one way that we're going to do it is by lowering our concession costs if this passes come Tuesday when we get the upgrades done to the stadiums and the Royals move downtown. That would be one way for them to extend an olive branch, because a lot of people are sitting there saying, okay, you guys are still going to charge me $18 for a drink when I go to a game. What am I getting for my 3/8 sales tax, John?
You got a point. The basics there, what? Popcorn, peanuts, hot dog, pop, maybe a cheap beer deal. And it's great if you want the barbecue triple stack onion ring, nacho in a helmet.
Yes,
that's great.
That's great.
But for the other guys, there's $1 peanuts, a couple $1 hot dogs, et cetera, just like you're saying.
And you know what else the Chiefs could do as well? Because they're getting all that space out there at Truman Sports Complex. They could also talk about how they're going to try to make sure that pricing for parking does not go up for the next fill-in-the-blank amount of years. Because one thing I've heard that hasn't gotten a lot of attention is the fact that they're basically out of parking. If you get to a game late, and I usually park on the south side of the stadium if I go to a game, there are people just making up parking spots. You go to the north side, you go up to that gravel lot up on the north side, it's that place is just a dump. If it's a muddy day, forget it.
Hopefully it's not raining.
It's a crap show up there. They are out of parking. If the Chiefs want to make a big move today, if they want to get this yes vote to pass, part of what they should do is not just talk about concessions, but talk about how, hey, if we get this thing done, we get more parking, and we will not increase the price of parking until 2035. We'll have a 10-year extension to promise to not increase. Now, I'd love to see a decrease in parking prices, but I'm not going to be that arrogant's the wrong word, but I don't want to be that presumptuous in terms of what their bottom line needs to be. But we will not increase parking prices till 2035 if this yes vote passes, because we'll have more parking, more people that can come in and park in our location, and we want to make sure this is the best experience possible for Chiefs fans. They could do those things. That will prove a continued commitment and relationship and partnership with the taxpayer and the fan. Now, it's not going to happen. There will likely be just more fear-mongering instead, but it would be a way for them to show their commitment and their true partnership to the community at large. And it would make people feel like they understand the plight of the average person right now who feels like they're priced out of games. Even if they get tickets, it's going to cost them an arm and a leg to buy a beer and a hot dog and take their kids and get a souvenir and do all these things. That populism sentiment on the left and the right has gotten completely overlooked by both teams because they have been caught up in their own bubbles for the most part. And it would be a great way, a huge announcement, if you got John Sherman and Clark Hunt together on this today, that I think would push the S over the top. 913-408-7957. Mark's in Independence. Mark, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Great discussion. And I want to thank you sincerely for bringing up details that you don't hear covered in these big advertisements to vote yes on TV and radio. And my big concern is I'm a DOT truck driver, and we're timed under DOT law. We can't afford to be sitting hours and hours in traffic every time there's a dead-gum ball game. And I have yet for that to be covered. And I feel like the elites are totally out of touch on this.
You know, I think that something I brought up, thank you, Mark, to a lot of people in recent weeks when they asked me, and these were people who were in the bubble of both teams. I said, you guys got to understand with the Royals deal, there's a lot of different reasons people are going to vote no. It's not going to be because they don't want you to go downtown exclusively. It will be because of parking. It will be because of liking the K. It will be, yes, in part maybe taxes for some people. And I asked John Sherman about this when I had him on the show last week, which you can find on the podcast. I said, what about, families getting downtown? And, you can go hear his answer, and he talked about how parking's going to be fine and the whole thing. But Mark brings up another angle of this, which is people who work downtown. Maybe they're not even sports fans. Do they want to be bothered 81 days a year with traffic fiascos downtown? They can tell you it's all going to be well and good, but you buying it? A lot of people aren't. And then there's the family element. Someone once said this to me about the KC Current. They said to me about the current situation, they're like, well, this will be great. Yeah, I can go to the game, have a couple beers, I can Uber out of there, life's going to be good. And this was someone who, kids are long gone out of the house. I said, okay, well, that's great. And maybe the Current only care about, single people and empty nesters. But for those of us who have kids, how am I getting 3 kids down to the Current game in an Uber? Am I going to drive downtown, try to get on a streetcar, walk a mile, do all that? No, that's not how normal people take their kids to games and take their kids to anything. It's a project for me to get the kids out of the car into the church, and I can see
Yes.
the church. It's 100 feet down the street. I mean, come on. I got 3 car seats in the back seat. Welcome to the real world. There are too many people who have been caught up in their bubble in this conversation. And if the no vote wins, now I'm not saying that it will, I think it's going to be close. I said on Friday, I think the yes vote ekes it out. But if the no vote prevails, people are not going to understand why. And it's not going to be one reason, but they're not going to understand why because they've been caught up in their own bubble throughout this entire process.
The parking lot thing is perplexing. We have situations where I've heard as low as 10,000 cars in the parking lot at a sporting event and as high as 26,000. And so they keep saying there's 40,000 parking spaces downtown. Well, is that from the river to Crown Center? I mean, that's a big space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, of those 40,000, then you have workers and people who probably rent those monthly that would live down there, right? So that's 39,999 with the one guy who rents, right? So there are going to be spaces that are taken. Secondarily, then we're used to the wide open spaces in the Midwest, and I'm going to park here and party in the next parking lot space. Right?
Yeah.
This is not going to be possible with people cramming into the crossroads, and that's going to ruffle feathers.
You're going to have people getting into fights in the parking garages.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm parking there, you bum. It's
Move
gonna,
your grill.
Yeah. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
It's going to be problems.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be convenient for families, potentially. And that is something
Not at all.
that doesn't mean you vote no. It's just something that should not get overlooked. Of course, all eyes in this town are on tomorrow, the vote in Jackson County. It's been 18 months in the making, and tomorrow's the day. Mark Donovan, Chiefs team president, is going to be here in 10 minutes for his first appearance on this show to talk about that vote here on KCMO. Now, we were just talking about the downtown parking issues. One of the many reasons that some people are going to vote no. Not that, they don't mind the 3/8 cent sales tax, but they just don't want to go downtown. And that's the thing the Royals have overlooked. The amount of people that will vote no for various reasons. It's not one reason, it's various reasons. And by the way, the Chiefs are then caught in the crosshairs of all this. If this vote tomorrow becomes about the Royals, no will win. If this vote becomes about the Chiefs, the yes will win. It's going to be that simple. It depends what people perceive this vote to be about. But Mark was just telling me during the break here that speaking of parking downtown, family friends went down to the Current game on Saturday. Is that right?
That's right.
So they go down to the Current game, and they got, a couple of kids?
Yeah, they got 10-year-old and 8-year-old.
Okay. All right. 10-year-old, 8-year-old, similar to your older, too. And where did they park to go to the KC Current game on the riverfront?
So they decided instead of parking the $68 parking next to the stadium.
I just can't get it. The $68 parking.
They wanted to get food instead of paying the parking. That was their choice. They'd rather park further away and pay to get food at the game.
I'll take a week of groceries over parking at the Current game. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so they ended up parking by Union Station, Crown Center.
Okay.
Taking the streetcar from that first stop there by Union Station.
Yep.
And going all the way down to wherever
to River Market?
Wherever it ends, because it doesn't get to the game yet.
No, of course, yeah.
So then they have to take a shuttle to get to the front, and it took them about an hour in total to get from Union Station all the way to the KC Current game. They barely got there before the game started.
And what about afterwards?
Afterwards, he said that he was very nervous that they weren't going to be able to make it all the way back, would probably have to walk further. But he said it wasn't as bad on the way back than what he thought. So
was it also an hour-ish, do you know?
He said they ended up not taking as long on the way back.
So maybe 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to be a problem for the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can get to River Market in no traffic 25 minutes, give or take. Just if I'm blazing up 35, right? And for most people in the metro, depending on where you're at, you're looking at anywhere from probably 15 to 25, 30 minutes. You're talking about an hour. That's a problem. We're not talking about the Kansas City Chiefs playing in an AFC championship game. We're talking about going to watch, yes, an up-and-coming sport, and I have 3 daughters, so I'm not ragging on women's soccer when I say this. I want the Current to be successful. I want any business in Kansas City to do well. But you're still talking about women's soccer.
And the sellout's 11-5.
Okay.
So that's not a ton of fans.
It's not. But that is just, you can't expect people to take 2 hours to commute to a game on a Saturday for the Current. And if the Royals are going to be downtown, and you're talking about people sitting in parking garages after games for 35 minutes to an hour, people are going to be turned off by that. They can tell you it's not going to happen, and I hope that they're right if they end up going there. But there's still enough people who are going to say, I'm going to vote no just because I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want anything to do with, and there's a lot of reasons they may go vote that way. But one of them might be, I don't want to deal with that. I'm not interested in going down to the parking garage, sitting there for a half hour after the game. I got 3 kids in the back seat. Dad, I got to pee. Dad, I'm hungry. Dad, my water bottle's empty. I don't want to deal with that. I want to get in and I want to get out. And they can promise you all the parking spots in the world and everything else. But, people have experienced T-Mobile. They've experienced concerts, getting out after events. It can be a little hairy. Do you want to do it for a baseball game? That's one of the many questions that voters will be asking themselves as they go to the polls tomorrow.